Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening in here on the first ever episode of Nudawn, a Final Fantasy XI podcast. Before we get into the episode, we just want to let you know that this one will run a little bit longer, and the goal in the future is to get these under an hour. But other than that, we appreciate you listening. We look forward to you joining us on Discord and giving us feedback. But other than that, let's get into the episode. All right, let's try this again. All right, everyone, welcome to the first episode here on Nudawn, a Final Fantasy XI podcast in 2019. I'm your host, Icilies, and I got my co-host, Vaubrobond here. What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Oh, not much. Just seeing if we're talking about the right game here. Didn't Final Fantasy XI, didn't the server shut down a few years ago?
Yeah, something about meteors raining from the sky and shit like that. I don't know. It's an antique.
Well,
museum.
And we're just here. Well, we've got a pretty good little episode here, I think. So I'll give you the quick agenda before we dive right in. So we're going to be talking
like a good host.
Hey, that's right. Grab me one.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about a little bit with our history with Final Fantasy XI, where we started, maybe why we quit the 5-6 times that we did, then ultimately kind of what brought us back. Then we're going to get into a little bit about Nudawn Linkshell, why we started the Linkshell itself, what we could accomplish in the beginning and kind of what we're up to today. And then we want to get into some community drama. So we're going to look at some of the current events that are going on in the community, and then get into the upcoming update. So we've got some changes with Paladin and Dark Knight are on the schedule.
And like a good co-host, I brought him one too.
You going to double fist it?
Like my Dixie cup.
So yeah, I mean that's the agenda. So we won't plug anything just yet. We'll wait till about halfway through. But anything you want to say before we get started? Anything on top of that dome?
It's been an interesting time having came back to the game about a year ago now. But
a year? Weren't you?
Yeah.
Where were you? Germany?
Yeah, I was in Germany. I came back just before I left, and somehow I'm still playing even after I've been back. So it's been quite a ride.
So, well, let's just get right on our first topic. When did you start? How'd you find this game? What was your calling?
So originally, I found this game. My dad used to travel to Japan for work, and so he got early access to the game by just being in Japan, and so he started playing during the Japanese release. And we had been fans of the Final Fantasy franchise since the Nintendo, the original like American releases. We didn't really get into like a lot of the MMOs. I played a lot of Diablo and stuff like that as well. And then when my dad came home, he's essentially, you guys got to check this out, and that's how that worked.
Did your dad play?
He sure did.
Oh.
I actually tried to get him to come back when I came back, but it didn't pan out very well.
What do you say?
I paid for him to move servers, and he played for about a month, and then he hung his hat back up, and he's just like, the game's too different. Wasn't for him anymore.
So what was your class? What'd you play?
Originally I played Warrior, Beastmaster, Bard, and Ranger.
What was the cap when the game launched? Was it 50?
75 for because like
NA?
the game. I don't remember. We played. I didn't really get into playing the game until the Zealot expansion was already out, and so
Yeah, I guess that would have been 75 because Sky came with that, so that makes sense. Yeah, I remember going over, like specifically, I know I was 15 years old, and I went and visited my friend who was cool enough to have his own laptop at that time. And I stayed the night and watched him kill fucking rabbits in Baruta for like 3 hours, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I saved up and put the because I didn't have a computer, so the PS2 version was getting ready to launch. So I remember going to Walmart and putting that on layaway when they still offered layaway, and got the PS2 version with the 40 gigabyte hard drive at the time. And yeah, that was all she wrote. Pretty much the next like 4 years of my life was any free time. I was on dial-up then, though. Did you have broadband when that game launched?
So we still had dial-up as well, but it was always fun getting a phone call and getting disconnected from your Valcom Dunes parties. But
that, or for me, it was always tying up the phone line, so we didn't get disconnected. It was just always busy, and no one could ever call because we didn't have the money to have the. I think you could do like 2 lines then or something, but we didn't have any of that fancy stuff.
Well, we eventually got one of those DSL lines. We used that for a while until we were able to get like an actual like decent setup for it. When it ended up getting to the point where Dad played, I played, my younger brother played, and then Mom was like, "Fuck it, I'll play too." So for a while, it was.
Your whole family played?
My whole damn family played. It was awesome. Once everyone got home from work and, got home from school and we'd had dinner, we'd all go to our separate rooms so we could all play.
Do you have like a one of those like Ethernet switches you just set in the middle of the room and you all like plugged up? Because Wi-Fi wasn't, it was out, but like it was pretty sketch then.
We had some wiring done, essentially. My dad ran, so my parents had bought the house back in like 98 or something. So my dad drilled holes in all the walls and ran Ethernet cable from where the modem was into a splitter, and then that splitter split off into 5 sets so you could have one for each PlayStation. And then we were still able to have a phone line.
So you started on the console too then?
Yeah, we all ran off of the PlayStation.
That's crazy then too. They were able to even pack that much into the game on that 40 gigabyte hard drive for so long, because it ended, the PS2 support ended with Rhapsodies, right? That's kind of when they.
I thought it ended with Seekers.
I don't know. I think Seekers was on console. I thought they got through Rhapsodies and ended support. Let's use the power of the internet.
Google is your only friend.
Let's see. Says
2016.
Yeah. So still to be able to run the game for, that was 3 years ago. We just did the 13 years? Yeah, 13th anniversary you got through. That's pretty crazy. Because the obviously the PS3 was out. So
the PS4 was out.
Oh, you're right. Dang.
Console survived 20 almost 20 years. Like,
can you imagine being the developer with like all the technology in the world that you have, but your game is limited on having to stick to the PS2 dev kits? Although I think that they overcame that somehow now. I don't think they're on that limitation that they had. So I don't know what they did to figure it out, but I guess they did it. So how long did you grind out when you first started playing? When did you first quit?
Not too long after Wings of the Goddess.
that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy the content that was in it, and
Because it took him like what 3 years or something to get through all the updates.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Wings of the Goddess came out. I was maybe a junior in high school by then. I remember when it came out. Like I was the first. Like I went into that campaign pretty hard, but like after I don't know. I just felt like they just released the game too slow, or released that expansion way too slow. And for me, like by the time the next update came around, it's like I couldn't even remember what had happened in the last patch where there was actual content released. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the first time that I quit too, because maybe I played for about a year after it came out, because I started college shortly after that expansion, or a year or two after, and I my first year of college I played, and that's when whatchamacallit, Chimera was like the big thing to camp then, that hot declare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that just shows you after Wings of the Goddess comes out, everyone's doing Octagon content.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was just kind of the rough spot that the game kind of essentially forced itself into.
I mean, it had some cool things. So Dark Ixion was there, which that was like a pretty unique fight. And
it really was. But like the big problem is if you look at what it released with it for end game, it was a whole bunch of who cares kind of content, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
I also at that time wasn't able to like be as hardcore because of classes and whatnot, so I didn't do a whole lot. Not to mention I was like a kid, so
yeah.
Back then it was like you needed to understand the math of the game to like master a class. I also had no idea what like any type of, like, then I think people use like spellcast and all this other crap. I was on my PS2, so doing Dynamis on a dial-up connection. Pretty much running the game at 1 frame. What are you Googling over there?
Trying to figure out where I need to go for this next pop we got going.
2 beers, multitasking, still trying to play. That's dedicated. Yeah. He's back.
No, you got to do what you got to do when you have the time to do it, you know.
So how long did you quit? Like, was that up until a year ago, or did you come back before then too?
So I was trying to work as well, and between work and the game, I ended up getting on 12-hour shifts for 7 days a week, and that ended up being the honest final nail in the coffin. Because like I just didn't have the time to play the game. I didn't feel like, you know. I ended up going like 6 months where I only logged in like 3 times and decided that was that, you know, and canceled sub.
Yeah, I once I got in college, I joined a fraternity, so pretty much I had no free time because I also worked all the way through college, so I worked full time, did the fraternity, so there was literally no free time. I remember my first semester of college, I tried to play the game, but I pretty much killed myself because it was still like they hadn't quite changed, or they were just about to change the pops for like Fafner and all that to where you traded the item and popped them. So you were still camping it, and then camping Chimera, Tiamat, so getting on like rotations of watching spawn windows. So I did that for like a semester, and I was like, this is too much. I can't do this anymore. Did you ever do that stuff? Did you camp in MZN? Were you in an in-game Linkshell?
Yeah, That's actually part of why I ended up leveling Beastmaster back in the glory days when you could still MPK people.
I still remember before they did the update with the um, in like Utunga Jungle where the goblins people would train it to the zone, and before like they would never despawn, so they would always just hang out at the zone once someone like MPK'd everyone. So then you just have a bunch of level 20 noobs just getting slaughtered over and over.
Valcom Dunes was just as bad as that, or I think the worst one was probably Crawler's Nest or Garland's Citadel.
What for MPKing?
Oh yeah, because you'd pull like a one crawler from like the bottom, you snag up one of them rumble crawlers, and then all of a sudden everybody's getting the entire zone just retires for the next hour.
Yeah, because then everyone camped in those little circle areas where there's different tunnels, I think, right? Although Garland Citadel was just as bad too. Like even at the zone, people would bring those bats through. Or like accidentally falling through the cracks when we were pulling. So what so how many times did you quit before you came back a year ago? Was it that one time?
Just a one and done, dog.
So you were on a pretty big break then.
Yeah, it took about 10 years off the game. I just didn't have the time to play, like I said, between work and everything. And when I came back, it was just like, all right, everything's
What brought you back
different.
a year ago?
Was watching Mario Maker videos of all things, trying to find stuff I could use to make levels for my niece and nephew.
Is that a Switch game?
Yeah. Oh, it was the Wii U game at the time. The Switch one didn't come out until like June or something this year. But I was watching that, find stuff I could do, help make levels for my niece and nephew who play. And then I got linked to a video of a dude soloing some content that didn't look like it should have been soloable, so that was interesting.
Yeah, it definitely brought a new, like where the game is now. It's like there's so much that you can do by yourself, and there's still a lot of content that you need. For most people, you need a group with, but it's also at the point where if you're good enough, you can do a lot of those things solo. So it's an interesting time for the game. Did you where did you roll until you joined the Linkshell? Were you in another group, or did you just?
So I'd been in a few groups. They were all pretty interesting batches of people. Had one group we ran for about 4 months together before we all ended up just kind of splitting.
Was that an EU group that you found while you were over there, or was that?
No, it was still an NA group. I just could only do weekend events with them, so. But they were pretty cool about it.
What month did you go to Germany?
February.
Okay, so you were still in the States for a bit then when you came back.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I was actually I kind of fell into that the trap of like retail version of the game is like I didn't give it a chance. I was like, oh, it looks stupid and boring. So I was actually playing on private servers here and there. And what I don't even know what it was that I quit in college, and then I think I came back for Rhapsodies maybe. Yeah, I did Rhapsodies a couple years ago because I remember I was still streaming a little bit, so I came back and just so I could finish out the storyline, and then I quit again. And then for me, this past May is when the appreciation anniversary. I was like, okay, I'm gonna log in and I'm gonna give away everything I have. Because last time that I was playing during the Rhapsodies, I also my son was born, so I was off for like 6 weeks. So while taking care of him, I finished my goldsmithing, and the shield hadn't launched yet then. So I got lucky because the Stakini rings had also just came out in the game. So I had crafted a few. I got lucky and I HQ'd a few of those. And at the time, they were worth like 250 to 300 million each on Valifor. So when I came back, I was like, I'm gonna give away all my stuff, and so I did. I posted even on Reddit, like I did, hey, giving away. Did some games similar to what we do is like the Linkshell events, where it's like breaking people up into groups and having people, random scavenger hunt stuff. So I gave a ton of crap away. But then I read the developers like came out with like a tell-all around like pretty much how the game from a development side has ran the past few years, and it was they kind of just like opened up, and I don't know if you've read it or not, but they essentially said once a year they know if they're going to be able to have the servers on for the next year. So it was like a 1-year renewal every single time, and then they opened up, like, with the few developers that they do have are like worried about job security. Obviously, when the game runs at a 1-year renewal, you don't know if you're going to have a job next year because you have to rely on that renewal. So it's like the motivation levels. So when they announced that, essentially, I guess the game has like it didn't keep going down in terms of population what they thought. So it either plateaus and then spikes during some of the events. They indefinitely extended the lease for the server. So I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, if they're willing to kind of open it up and make this investment, and then as much as everyone craps on our server, I guess I got lucky when I was doing all these events. Like, I found a bunch of awesome people, and it kind of just like sucked me back in. And then I was like, well, maybe I should make a Linkshell. And so that's kind of what I did. So I kind of gave away all my stuff and then decided to play the game.
Yeah, it's interesting, that's for sure.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into the next topic of why we made the Linkshell in general. So Nudawn is actually from Valifor. So a lot of people are like, hey, I know this Linkshell, and I really wanted to take a lot of the same values and things that they focused on. So it was a very close-knit family environment, and a lot of the changes and all the updates are all based on kind of everyone having that kind of open feedback mentality. And as welcoming as it was to come back and meet a lot of people that were still playing the game, I could tell it still kind of missed some of those old school, organized Linkshells where, you had something to be a part of. I think now the vibe that I got is like a lot of people are running solo, so it's easy to hit those walls of, okay, do I feel like logging in today? But if you had a group of people to where, you can hop on Discord, and even if it's just not even really doing anything, you just got someone to chat with. So you just log in and do whatever for a little bit. All of those things kind of went into, okay, if we do this, let's do something organized, because it felt like there was a need for it. I don't know what your thoughts are. It's kind of my perspective, at least at the time. But you've been playing a little bit longer than me.
Well, I mean, you're the one who created Nudawn, so like, and where we started, like, it's like you said, you started from essentially, yep, I'm quitting, to maybe there's still something left for me in this game, and that's kind of where the Linkshell's built from. We're trying to do things that a lot of us have really not done a whole lot of before, or maybe have never done before. You know, we've got a lot of people who are new to a end game style. We have a lot of people who have several years of end game style experience. So we've got everything from people who are just coming back to people who have been back for, or who have never quit, even in like some of the members' cases.
Cronin.
Yeah, good old Crow Daddy. But but
yeah, I remember you weren't in yet, but I think I still have pictures of this, but our first organized event was there's two things. One was an Omen run, and bruh, like I don't even think, besides Cronin, I don't even know if we had anyone with master jobs yet. I just remember wiping about 10 times to, I don't remember which boss that we did, but we did, we still do this sometimes, but we didn't even have any tanks really. We just pup tanked everything. Mid boss, the, whatever the hell the main bosses are called, and wiping a bunch. And then I remember, I didn't know anything at the time about like HP scaling with all this new content. So we took, although Cronin did, but we took 18 people into Ryzen Jima for, at the time, that event where you get personal drops out of the clear, or out of the kills.
Yeah.
And no master jobs. Like a lot of people, like myself, I didn't even have any job points at the time, I don't think. But that was a hot mess. I still got pictures, like full wipes multiple times. Like you were at the last tier 2 alliance that we did, where we just smoked all the tier 2s. Like, bro, it was ugly then. So it's wild to see like how fast we've progressed as a group now. Obviously, we've added new members too that were geared just from the name getting around, but really a lot of the people that were here since the beginning, I mean, they're just completely different characters since we first started. So it's been crazy. I don't know. You said your first thing with us was what? CP? You popped in? I don't even know how you found us again. What did you answer that earlier?
So I'd seen you. You were shouting for something. I don't remember what y'all was shouting for. And I joined y'all for that, and then somebody sent me the link to y'all's Discord, and it had been about 2-3 weeks after my last link shell had blown up, so I just said screw it and dropped an application, and I had a Pearl that afternoon.
Sucked you in.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, and I think from there, I think the first like event that we did was Vagary, and that's when you introduced Ellie and Gia, right?
Yep, Vagary. I brought Ellie, Gia, and Worm, I think.
Yeah, I think Gia had just come back too, so we we roped her back in, hooked her.
Yeah, Gia had only and Alvin, because Gia,
yeah, that's right.
Gia had only been back for long enough for me to have done a CP party with her, Ellie, and Alvin, and me. We were doing a CP, and she was on Bard, and her Bard was so undergeared that it may as well have just been naked.
Whose?
Gia's.
I didn't know she was working on Bard. I'm gonna have to
She's
ask her
not.
about that.
She's gonna get mad as hell that I even brought it up. So
yeah, no.
We did that, and like we tried having her pull, and that went over about as well as a fart in church, and then
oh boy, yeah, something else. Oh yeah, that was the month you came in was when that was the last CP event, and I remember I was like glaring this month. Spent my days down in that cave.
Yeah, y'all were doing that bat bowl, so you could kind of like half AFK do it and not really take it seriously,
Yep. Yeah, that's when we were trying to outdo the 50 other people that were down there.
Yeah, it was funny. Gia would go and pull something and then get annihilated on the way back, or fail to sleep it like 6 or 7 times, just get completely annihilated. And
What's yeah, we've come a long way. What content, like, what do we still have to hit on? Like, what haven't we cleared yet?
our thoughts on so for content we need to get to, we need to do wave 3. We've gotten into it and been able to stick our toes in it, get our feet wet, but it's been, I mean, hell, in the last about 2 months, we've gone from just getting obliterated in a wave 2 end boss to getting 2 of the 4 down. So I mean, that's a good step. And
yeah, and I think for the wave 2s, we've got, just from the last progression that we did, we didn't have my Gastra, we didn't have Roka's death penalty. And we've mastered a couple more cores. So I think from a damage output versus, for me, I only had like a frontline job, so being able to do damage without dying. So definitely wave 2. Obviously, wave 3 is probably our biggest thing. Our next thing will be like helm clears too. So we haven't done that as a Linkshell, but we've got, I mean, Ellie just is finishing up his Nirvana, and then we've got Raven and Cronin, who both have their Nirvanas done. They just got to get through their trials. So we'll have went from none to 3 new Nirvanas, plus a couple people that have joined recently have theirs. So
yeah, we'll be up to almost 5 of them. We might be able to start even doing like 12-man instead of just the usual like 3 drag-alongs.
Yeah. Yeah, and then someone mentioned too from the Master Trials, that's 6-man stuff, right? Is that party?
Yep, that's 6-man stuff.
Yeah, actually, I haven't even touched on that yet. What is that? What are the Master Trials?
Essentially, another piece of in-game content for like lock style stuff.
Okay,
they're pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't even started that researching on that one yet, but people have mentioned at least going out there and dying at it just to see it. So, yeah, interesting. What else is there? Helms, wave 3, dynamics
Helms,
clears.
Wave 3. That's really about all we're like missing on. I mean, we slam ooh pretty well.
Oh yeah, the Omen stuff isn't even. Yeah, that stuff is easy clear. I'm wondering what. Because I'd like to get through this stuff because they've got to be coming out with content for the Empyrean upgrade soon. So that's the last one that's for the Reforge, right?
Yep, that'll be your final Reforge there. That's got a lot of speculation floating behind it.
What do you think they would do stats-wise? I need to look at, like...
Well, look at...
Is there a consistent... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
If you just look at, like, the stat spreads between, like, the +1s to +3s of, like, your relic and artifact sets, I expect it to be very much in line with that, Another piece of, for, like, your melees, another piece of weapon skill damage gear. Maybe another double attack or something, very, very consistent, where it'd be likely a piece of...
I'm hoping they use it to bring some of the other classes into viability, like versus like I don't know how you'd balance this. Like I'm not ever good at talking about the balancing, but like versus through a change in the job traits or job abilities, like bringing gear that would bring certain jobs up to the level of others. So like some big updates for just output. I also hope the content itself, or however they do it. What do you think they do at Abyssia?
So I think a lot of the problem with like the balancing issues is the likelihood, the amount of stuff that's actually just like, this is for this one job only, is extremely, extremely small. So it's a matter of like, you'd have to balance things more specifically off of like your JSE or something like that, instead of actually, off of, you can't balance Adamar set to be great for everybody type deal. Although it is, but
yeah, especially since you can just get multiple pieces and with different paths. So yeah, that's another thing too, is one, if they're going to add more gear to the game, and especially with the augment system that's coming for the Unity gear, like they got to fix the inventory, because I don't even know how people master so many jobs now, because I've essentially geared Red Mage, Rune, Samurai, and Ranger, and I have zero space to work with. So like I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. I know they're limited, and I know there's reasons why, but it's like a huge problem that they need to fix.
inventory management's always kind of a difficult piece for this. I mean, you look at your inventory slots. You've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, I also have
6,
like
7, 8, 9,
it's almost like that email that you never want to delete. I also have a little bit of that. So there's like this one crappy item in my inventory that I know that I need to just throw away, but so it's a little bit of that. I could probably manage a little better, but still, especially like my Red Mage, I probably have 60 pieces of gear for Red Mage, like alone. Like I don't know. Anyways, I just went on a little bit of a rant, but I just see it being a big problem if they're going to continue to add gear to the game.
A lot of it is like, overall, you have a total of 880 inventory slots. And on one hand, that sounds like a lot. And then you look at, some of your jobs, like, Rune Fencer, which you can do really well as a DD with, a DD set, defensive sets, your DTs, your enmity sets, your weapon skill sets. And real quickly, you go from having, 880 slots of inventory to having 100 of them dedicated for just one job.
Yeah, and those aren't all even accessible for switching gear. I mean, or are you counting up ones that are immediately accessible everywhere for gear?
So that'd be like if you had if you just put 100 pieces of gear in your Mog Locker.
Yeah, because you have 4 Mog Lockers. The Mog Satchel and Case are accessible anywhere. Is that right?
Actually, it's
I can't remember.
might actually even be more than that, because that wasn't even including your inventory. That's just
It sounds like we're proving ourselves wrong here, but but yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that quickly piles up, though. You'd have 2 or 3 jobs. That's 880 items, 960 item slots, and that's, not counting if you have like food. You're going to be using food. It's not like you just.
Unless you're me and I always forget it, and I just.
Well, yeah, then you just use my food, jackass.
Man.
Told you we're going to get demonetized on YouTube, dog.
So, okay, well, let me, we'll wrap up, I'll wrap up a recap here, kind of, really what we finished up as a Linkshell this past month. So if you read on the Reddit post, November was a pretty big month for us, I think. We probably gained, I don't even know how many mastered jobs amongst people, so that alone is played a big part in just, I mean, just looking at last night how fast or easy Dynamis was.
Shit, Laren went and gained like 40 jobs by himself.
Yeah, we need to do
him and his freaking mules.
Like Laren's got a big beard right now. But yeah, we've got a ton of new master jobs. We introduced a new program in the Linkshell that help fund kind of different REMA weapons. So we were able to acquire, we have our first Yag Rush in a Linkshell. We got a death penalty in Nirvana. So that was all this month. And then some of the bigger stuff, like we talked about, was the fact that we got through, I think, Bastock and Juno Wave 2 boss. Is that accurate so far?
Yeah, we got Bastock and Juno dealt with. We got a dry run, and that's the wife coming. So, but we got a dry run of doing a Sandy Oria dealt with, so we know where to go and what to do for that one. Totally forgot to do the dry one of Windurst last night. Oh well.
That's probably a good thing. I don't think I was coherent enough to be able to focus.
Oh, so. You don't matter enough for that to happen anyways. You pay enough attention, we could have almost taught you on the moment versus making you have to retrain again.
Yeah, and so yeah, that, I mean, from a content standpoint, it was a pretty good month. I got to make sure to mention this, or she'll get on to me. From an organizational standpoint, we've overhauled, our organization in terms of making sure people are clear on what we're using funds for. So we overhauled kind of our spreadsheet that we use. So, a big leap forward in November for us. In December, what?
That spreadsheet y'all originally had looked like it was designed by an office worker who absolutely hated their job.
Listen, look what we've done in 6 months. Like, I didn't even know. I just said, hey, let's create a Linkshell, and we did it. And then people wanted to join for some reason. And then people was like, hey, let's do these things. Okay, so you know what? We found Gia, and Gia just so happens to be great at those things.
I found you, Gia.
But we're so amazing that she decided to stay. So in December, goals, obviously getting the other two wave 2 bosses done, progressing what we can in wave 3, and then we're going to be upping our Aeonic runs too. So we've kind of ran through Omen, and a lot of people have a lot of the gear. So the feedback was, hey, let's schedule a few more Aeonic runs, because right now it's a pretty slow process for us, specifically because the helms, which it will be a test for us this week and see how we do. But anyways, the Aeonic runs are on the docket to do at an increased rate this month. So wave 2 bosses and Aeonics are the big thing. I miss anything? Does that sound right?
Wave 2 bosses, we've already got the plan for Sandy Oria down and ready to rock and roll. And then we just need get the plan put together for Windurst. But I'm pretty sure with as well as we've done on the other two, the issues we had with Bastocks when we did that one, that was a rough day. But
hey, we cleared it.
Hey,
it may have been.
It was not pretty, and it was not happy, but that shit went down.
There was 30 seconds left. It took us like 50 minutes to do it, but it died. Okay, it died, and that's what matters.
So,
cool. So let's talk a little bit about the update that's coming. So they announced Paladin and Dark Knight are on the books for an update this month. So what do you think about that? Do they need updates? Do they need changes?
Well, I mean, updates are always updates are not always a good thing, but generally speaking, should always be welcome, just for the ability to be able to bring new content and new abilities or capabilities to the game. Helps keep certain jobs from becoming stale and dry.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Paladin, I mean, just pulling one of the questions off the Reddit discussion, and I'll kind of let you answer this, but where does it fit currently, do you think, in the game? Like, does it excel anywhere and kind of stand out over maybe the other tanks?
So Paladin's kind of in a interesting spot, which it has been its entire existence, essentially.
I think well, I mean, if you look way back, of course, this is, what was it, Paladin Ninja back in the day? You couldn't top that, right? Because, I mean, that was when people first learned about, like, that one dude, like, did all the math for, like, decaying enmity and doing the ninjutsu rotation and all that. But fast forward to now where it's pretty much just who can mitigate damage. It's just not a thing anymore.
So Paladin's big problem is it's always kind of been overshadowed for the most part. I mean, back in the day, more often than not, Ninja did everything Paladin wanted to do better. And especially when AoE spells only took one shadow. Yep, I remember that time frame.
That was before my day. I don't know about that, but...
And a lot of your special attacks would still only take one shadow, and so one of the biggest things that have always been hurting Paladin in the enmity department is not having provoke naturally. Now, granted, you didn't always need that because generally speaking, sub warrior was always the way to go, and now you don't really necessarily need that because you could do like sub blue mage for a lot of AoE enmity, and you still have other options as well. But
yeah, I'm trying to think too, like right now, what instance would you choose like a paladin over like a rune fencer? Like I think it's
in ideal situations with maxed out gear, never.
Yeah.
I think I hate to say it that way, but
yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think, some things I'd like to see are just better, like rune fencers, their ability to mitigate like magic and elemental damage is just insane. Like for you to be able to practically just never take damage, like, and then
the physical damage doesn't do anything anyways. Like it's not like, you're not going to go out there with, a 12% DT setup on a rune fencer and be like, yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll, guys. Especially if you look at, a fully maxed out end game setup where you have your Rimas, you have your, pegged gear across the board. You're going to be sitting there and you've already just built in. You've got, you've got 20% or 25 PDT in your weapon. You've got options all the way across the board where you can, without even putting any effort into hitting, 30% DT base, then you add the 25% PDT too, and the rest of your setup, you're easily looking at still being able to push solid damage numbers in a turtle setup. Like you're gonna not take a whole lot of damage. The physical attacks are going to essentially bounce off of you, and you're going to laugh every time the monster casts a spell on you.
Yeah, and I think right now, too, like so much of the content, there's more than one thing to deal with. And, Rune Fencer excels there, too. Now, I know Paladin can sub-blue, but, I mean, even in the job
so can Rune Fencer, so it doesn't even matter. Rune Fencer, generally speaking, doesn't take... sub warrior anyway, so it either goes sub blue, sub dark, or something, and you're either, more often than not, the main reason why it gets picked anyways is you're a damage dealer.
Yeah, I mean the amount of like on like that last, I mean I don't even know what Omen boss it was where I was sober and and got.
When was the last time I was sober for an Omen? Let's not actually answer that.
but we did the proper rotation, like for bards and cores and rolls, and I was at the top of the damage on Rune Fencer. And, you know, I think that might lead into something I'd like to see in this update, and I know you hinted on it, but some way to increase damage output.
Well, especially for, like, Paladin. Like, Paladin's mythic weapon skill, like, it's terrible. It used to be amazing. Don't get me wrong. If somebody had gone out and either got, like, Burt Gang or whatever back in the day and was out there able to slam, like, legitimately DD numbers out there with Atonement. Now you can't do that. Now Atonement hits softer than your auto attacks do.
Yeah, and most of the time on Rune Fencer, I'll just use Lionheart, to be honest, and like the resolutions like popping off, and the fact that
because you don't have Epio. Don't mind me, dog. You see this? You watching this?
Did you?
These are some dimes.
Did we have to go there?
I'm just gonna drop some dimes on you, dog.
Hey, the JSE. Listen, the JSE Greatsword is pretty good. Okay.
Oh yeah. Between Rune Fencer and Geomancer, it's hard to say which one of the two have the absolute best JSC weapon. I mean, yes, I get it. You still use Donna even when you have everything else for Geo, but like a tier for being a weapon as well and being like an actual weapon, not just something you throw in your range slot and forget about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's great. A huge amount of accuracy, which is extremely important for, you know, especially for like a fresh Rune Fencer, what that weapon is designed for. And then you add on top of it, you've got 10% weapon skill damage. You know, you can now put together a pretty solid weapon skill damage set just off of, you know, that ambuscade cape, you know, and you'll be ready to rock and roll right out the gate, essentially. I'll be right back, though.
He left me. He's getting another beer. Make sure you grab me one.
Got you, dog.
Yeah, I think too, hopefully you can still hear me, but I think for Paladin, like they just need something like new job abilities, something to make it fun, because like Rune Fencer is just fun to play because you have so many different setups that you can go with. Just like the from the runes that you use to the different gear sets that you can go into. And like to have an ability to where I just want to absorb everything and all magic, to the job trait to where I can parry like 80% of the time or whatever it is, and then just to watch your health go up as you get hit. Like Paladin just, I don't know, just doesn't have that. And I think they need, I think the job needs some native AoE enmity abilities like Rune Fencer has. So yeah. He's gone. So yeah, this is a good time to do some plugging. So if you haven't yet, you can, he's back, but I've already started the plug, so hang out for a second.
Get them plugs sold, dog.
Yep, all day. You can visit, so with this podcast, obviously if you're listening to it, you know where it's at, but it will also be up on our website, so www.nudawnls.com. There you can, you know, we put some pictures on there. We've embedded our live stream now, so you can actually watch this straight through the website. You can also find a link to the Discord there that we try to keep active. So we're trying to build up the community, just the social part there. So even if you're not in the Linkshell, we continue to kind of create new channels to try to bring together the community there. So yeah, that's enough plug for that. Did you hear my spiel on Paladin? My last one.
So I heard parts of it. Paladin so for both tank jobs on AoE enmity, that's essentially why you go sub blue mage now setups.
Yeah, but still, Rune Fencer has it natively. Like, I mean, with the job abilities. No,
yeah, Paladin has a lot of job
balance
abilities too, but Rune Fencer has, what, 2 job abilities?
Yeah, and with those
Paladin
job
only has
abilities,
1.
like it,
Sentinel still generates a lot of enmity, not as much as the what's that one that's under ward for Rune Fencer?
like Valance.
Yeah, that's so in an AoE situation, mass pull or whatever, you come back, you slam like Sheep Song or something on him, something that you can cast quickly, and then you follow it up with Valiance, and you have
Love
hate
it.
on everything. Paladin would do Sheep Song and then follow it up with the Sentinel, and you still have a pretty decent amount of hate pulled, but it's just not as it's just not at the same point in which Rune Fencer is.
Yeah, and
But
it's
like,
also PDT, right, for Sentinel.
yeah, where Valiance is MDT.
Yeah, and so at a certain point, and this is where I don't know enough about Paladin to be honest, but like, is the PDT part of that job ability beneficial when you can essentially cap out damage taken now?
Not necessarily.
And I think that's where having, I think on the magic side of things too, so something to bring it up on par with Rune Fencer in that category, because even if Paladin can take less physical damage, like I was mentioning as well, it's like from like on Rune Fencer, I just parry so much and just watch my health go up. Like just the whatever the hell that ability is called that makes you parry all the time. Like, so not only can I negate all magic damage, I just sit there and parry and watch my health go up with the terms +1 gear. So it's like, I don't know. It just needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
So what do you think they're actually going to do? I guess we can get to that point. What do you think they're actually going to change?
Well, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I know what I would really like to see changed is I would like to see Atonement and Knights that are around get some flavor of buff. Paladins, I think Protect 5 shell where Rune Fences have Protect 5, Paladins I believe don't have Shell 5. Excuse me, have Protect 5, Rune Fencer has Shell 5. But
Right.
I'd expect that to be a thing. I would really like to see Paladins receive like innate Fencer and innate Provoke type abilities. I don't expect that to happen either. The Provoke might happen, but
Yeah, I don't
one
know if they're going
doubt.
to add anything. That's the only thing. It's kind of like, if you look at the past ones, they've only made tweaks. They haven't, like the past few job adjustments, they haven't really added a lot. So I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, you say that, but at the same time, you look at the Monk one and how vastly different the Monk update was compared to like the Ninja update.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for the Monk, it was just the fact that they weapon skills hit.
Yeah, weapons
on all
hand-to-hand
hits.
weapon skills were terrible, and go figure, you buff hand-to-hand weapon skills on a job that does an amazing job of generating TP on its own, and it now is a pretty powerful job.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to see is some type of tweak to the one of the abilities that puts better magic mitigation in there. Other than that, I think I agree with you. Something to like a native Provoke, whatever you would call it, even if it gets built into another job ability, or increase enmity or lower the decay. Or that could be a thing too. Like, what if you lower the decay of Provoke or something specifically for Paladin or something?
So the it falls into the problem where that's not going to be a whole lot of a change unless they fix the other problems we've already talked about.
Right.
Because like a lot of those issues that are currently the big problem are a matter of the paladin just doesn't where rune fencer does.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, it's just, I don't know. I'm skeptical that they're going to do anything that's greatly impactful, but we'll see. What about Dark Knight? What are you thinking? Because Dark Knight, a different story. I mean, we were talking about this before. Like, I don't even think Dark Knight's in a terrible spot. I think, like you were mentioning, I'll let you kind of tell this, but everyone kind of gets, stuck on this samurai thing, and then that's kind of like, it's like, oh, do you have Sam? And then, the Dark Knight kind of gets left in the corner.
Yeah. So Dark Knight, like, kind of the big selling piece for a lot of people on Dark Knight, especially if you don't look at like the end game meta for it, if you just look at the job, it's sides. Like great swords, kind of everybody can use great swords. It's you got paladin, warrior, dark, rune fencer, and they're great. Like great swords are absolutely amazing right now. A lot of melee Zerg plans will use like the Rayatic Algol +1, and especially in like recent Jima or things like that, against like a Corinne or whatever. It's a really strong build for doing that. My opinion, doing Corinne that way is actually easier than doing the Summoner burn.
So are you thinking that they might do some type of job trait for Scythe or something to?
Well, I don't think a job
the weapon
trait for
itself?
Scythe. I think one thing that would really help, that'd be actually really cool to see, is to see kind of like sides just get brought up on the table a little bit better. Be able to see, have the ambuscade scythe even get brought up, have it buffed to the spiral hell, have that do like a significantly more damage. See a lot of the Remo weapon skills like just get buffed as well, because I mean Remas, even though you can still you can complete them a hell of a lot quicker than you ever used to, but they just kind of fall off really hard, especially when you look at like a super buffed setup. Look at resolution damage where you can get that up. You've done what, over 50k already on resolution?
Yeah. So, if I'm fully
and you're
buffed,
doing that on a rune fencer, And you look at that, you look at Scythe, and Scythe just doesn't have anything it brings to the table in that aspect. Like it still does you can still do a lot of damage with it. It's just not as good as Greatsword, for lack of a better way to put it. And Torque Cleaver is a absolute monster. Now, granted, Torque Cleaver absolutely deserves to be an absolute monster like that, because I mean, if you take the time to build your MP weapon for your job, and you get 50 plus 50 to the primary stat of it, like that's a huge, like absolutely huge amount of whatever your stats multiplier is.
Veek is rocking.
He's walking Kala.
Yeah, he does just a crap ton of damage. So I think too, like, and this isn't as specific to Dark Knight, but like a lot of the content itself seems to favor, well, I guess maybe more dynamics, just like ranged attack and whatnot. So I don't know if survivability
it's not really
is a thing,
the content that favors it. It's just that if you can stay out of range of shenanigans while still doing decent amounts of damage, because like Ranger's not a real job until you have a Rema for it currently, and that's just simply because nobody wants you to just go in there and melee and then slam a last stand off a holiday. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Corsair can get away with it to an extent off of like lead and salute, but that's just based off more things being dark weak, it being a viable and Dynamis exclusively, and Corsair also has Savage Blade it can fall back on. A pretty significant amount of gear you can get for bonus to like weapon skill damage and crap like that. 1 second.
So, I mean, outside of a weapon, then what would you think they would change for the job? That's on because right now, like I said, yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to see scythe weapon skills get buffed, just to add a little bit more flavor to the job.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I would also like to see some small adjustments to survivability. They already have a pretty decent amount of survivability compared to other jobs, but
yeah, I need to. Have you played Dark Knight? Have you ever like taken time to gear it up and play the
it's
class?
level 49.
So job. Hey, I recently did mine to 49 for my rune sub. So, all I know is from a distance, it looks fun. I see Veek flying in the air on that weapon skill all the time, and I don't know what he's using, and he does massive damage. So, I guess I don't know what I'd want them to add, but something to maybe bring more people. Like, oh, I would definitely want to level that. It might be like a bandwagon type thing, but just something to. Even though I have Samurai, like I kind of want Samurai to go away a little bit, which I think they did a good job with Monk. I see a lot more people playing Monk. So I like to see something specific for the job that would be like, hey, I want to go out and actually invest into gearing up this job. And, the scythe thing, that might actually be worth it because what's the Dynamis one? Is that Apocalypse? Is that the Dynamis scythe, right?
Yeah,
right?
Apocalypse and the weapon skill Catastrophe.
Yeah. So
like,
I know
it's great. Like it is absolutely amazing for solo play and for self survivability. And outside of that, it's pretty much bunk.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't know if they'll do for weapon skills is because they've unofficially in that Japanese forum said, or actually not even the Japanese, they came out and said the reason they didn't update what's the monk one, Heaven's Fist or something, was because it's on the docket to do a complete overhaul of all of the relic weapon skills. So yeah, I don't know if they would touch any weapon skill damage output, but I guess they did change monk, so they could. I would like to see, this is I guess back to Paladin a little bit, but you mentioned Knights of the Round. My poor Excalibur for my red mage. Just collects dust sitting in my inventory, never being used.
I don't even know why you made that for red mage.
Well, listen, whenever I started making it, it took me like 4 years to make that thing. And there was no like it was not obtainable to easily go out and get like a Almace, or because then it was like, how are you going to get 1,500 metal plates? Because they never had no campaigns. You had to go out and get 18 people to proc every single void watch to even get a decent drop. So, okay, Excalibur was the way to go then. And then I learned a little bit about the job, and so now the additional effect isn't even beneficial for my red mage, but that's for another day. But it's pretty much worthless for Paladin, right?
Yeah.
Like from a tanking perspective, there's no benefits for it, right? I mean, it's just because it was mainly their damage output, right? I mean, that was the way they did damage.
Well, yeah, it was kind of, for a long time like Knights of the Round or Atonement. were really just kind of there to give you some form of damage option for late, super end game setups. And they've both kind of fell to the wayside. They have not aged very well. Well, the weapon skills haven't.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to like when my Rune Fencer can sit there and fully buff, just spam resolution for ridiculous damage. Like, I think that's the number one thing I got to see. I got to see Paladins able to output more damage, be able to leverage their DPS for tanking more than rely on their job abilities. So I think that's my final 2 cents on what I want to see for Paladin. But
well, I mean, yeah, Paladin definitely either buff the weapon skills for like Atonement, so it actually does relevant damage again, or give some sort of flavor so you can get more bang for your buck off of it. So otherwise, right now it doesn't really.
Yeah, it's a tough sell for 180 mil. What is it, Alexandrite? Especially, and then the B82s are going for 100 mil to Afterglow a weapon now. So you've got.
Well, you're looking at about a 250 mil total currently.
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
So the big thing for Burtgang, like what really pulls it out, is if you do have enough accuracy on your setup to be able to actually hit things with it. All you use it for is you proc your Aftermath for the multi-hit, and then you just slam Savage Blade anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I know Roka is gonna go after Paladin, so hopefully there'll be some good updates for him to be able to show out his Paladin.
Hopefully they update Paladin better than they did Ninja.
Yeah, they didn't like. That was laughable. So, well, let's get into the final segment here. This will probably be a little bit shorter, but let's talk about the drama from this past month around the duping situation.
Yeah, let's dupe all the things.
So what's funny is a couple weeks before anything started coming out, like I seen on Reddit someone post like, what's going on with Beastman medals? Like there's so many on the auction house all of a sudden. And I noticed it too. I was like, there's a lot of these Beastman medals coming out of nowhere. But what's crazy is what we've learned now is the people that were doing it really just chose Beastman medals just so it wouldn't be as obvious. So I guess they could dupe anything and everything, and they did. But in terms of what they used to make money, they chose the Beastman medals to actually dupe. I don't know how much you've gone through that thread, but it's pretty juicy.
That thread was beautiful. I highly recommend everyone goes and takes a minute to read it.
Yeah, it's crazy that this thing has been out for for 2 years. Because I mean, they posted the Lua like showing the date that thing was created, and I reached out to try to see if I can get some of those people on one of the podcast interviews. So we'll see if we can get them. But the way they told the story was almost like, man, like I want to be mad at you for this, but like they geared up like crazy compositions and went out and tried to kill stuff certain ways, and like fully decked out ranged like red mages and like anything and everything you could think of. They just went out and maxed out augments on everything. But it's wild to know that probably everything that you buy was probably being duped. So you had a small group of people just controlling an entire economy, which is insane to me, just because from a crafting perspective, I always pay attention to the economy, and knowing that a lot of it was ran in the background is pretty wild. I mean, and already you're seeing, I mean, I'm telling you, these Bietsus, they were being duped because from their going from 6-7K to 10K in a matter of a couple weeks since those bannings.
So part of that is just because Alexandrite prices are still pretty low.
Well, the availability of Alexandrite has gone down too. So the problem is a small amount of people still have most of the money in the game. So I don't know if prices are going to go up with Alexandrite because of the cost, because one, people either can't afford to go out and buy all of it, so they can't really raise the prices a ton because people just won't buy it because they can't afford to fund that. So I don't know. We'll see over the next couple months how much it impacts the price of things. But from a crafting side, I mean, I'm like, you're seeing the price of a lot of the main materials, at least through goldsmithing. So like dark matter, a lot of the main goldsmithing stuff prices are already going up. So I'm guessing the price of like your +2 necks and your rings, earrings, all those things are gonna start going up because of the just there's less materials out there to actually craft with. So.
Well, a lot of those have already been going up. So, I mean, a lot of your popular job +2 necks have gone up,
Yeah.
10 mil already.
Yeah, some of them like 20. Like I think I was looking at this one's a little bit, but because of the job update and the duping, but like the monk one is up to like 80, 90 mil now. It's like crazy. So, but we'll see. But yeah, if you haven't gone on and found that discussion, I think they've locked it now, but they didn't delete it, so you can still go back and read.
I believe they also pulled the old one out of deletion.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I think you actually go through that one as well.
Yeah, you can go back and read too. Like the guy pretty much told like the past 2 years, like when it was found and everything that they did the past 2 years, because people were just posting questions in the thread and he would go back and answer it right after they posted it. So it's wild. Just so much of the stuff that's out there was just duped. And I mean, did you read, the way the dupe worked, like ultimately?
Actually, I didn't, but
so essentially, I guess it's patched since then. But the way Square Enix is, and I don't code or do anything at all, so I'm sure I'm going to botch this, but I'm going to do my best. But if you go to an NPC to where you can get items back from it, apparently the server doesn't actually look at your inventory and register how many of an item you actually have. So if I trade, one Beastman medal, the server's not actually reading my inventory knowing that I have one Beastman medal. So whatever they were able to do with this packet thing, they were essentially able to just change the amount of quantity that the NPC would give them back, because the server never knew how many they actually had. So they could just max out anything and everything that they want. So, and it worked on practically any NPC that is able to give you items back, which is wild. Like, just absolutely crazy. So, and who knows how long it's been in the game. I mean, or if anyone else ever found it. They've been doing it for 2 years, but surely there was probably another form of something somewhere else that they just didn't get caught or didn't get ratted out on. So,
yeah.
But there's also a lot of people that made off from it, from that guy who decided to rat everyone out because they didn't ban anyone who went out and maxed out their inventory with all those medals. So the economy is still working its way through it, although the inventory has gone down here quite a bit. So, but yeah. Well, my friend, any final words on anything before I do our final plug and wrap this up?
So, I did actually have a final thought here.
Shoot.
Since we've both been essentially, between the two of us, back for a year and a half combined, what's your favorite part of having came back to the game?
For me, and I hinted on this in our most recent my recent post on the Discord it's the community. So, this is a great question I think you bring up is from the outside, if you just look, you would think that, I don't even know how you say our server, Ashura. Yeah, there you go. Is like a dump fire of terribleness. And that's the first thing that I noticed is like, okay, I know that I can help build a group where we can accomplish things together. And that's what keeps me logging in every day is the fact that we keep accomplishing new things. From an individual level, people are gearing up jobs and just constantly learning. I know for me, this has been a great chance for me to learn the ins and outs of different classes. But ultimately, it boils down to this, like the link show that we're in, I think has been the most enjoyable part, and showing that in 2019, you can build a group of people, and this isn't a solo game. You can still tackle content in large groups. You may die a lot like we do every now and then, but ultimately we learn and, we continue to accomplish things. So it's definitely the group that we've built, I think. How about you?
So there's a few excellent things you can with this game still. I mean, if you've always got yell chat, and depending on how populated your server is, you could just get really drunk and watch yell chat, and it ends up being better than Jerry Springer half the time. And then the other things you got, it's just like you said, it's an overall community. Most people are building. There's a lot of people who aren't, but there's a lot of people who are at the same time willing to try to take the time to learn, to help others, to figure it out. Gia's favorite thing is the virtual drinking buddy. Especially when you do enough the night before, you wake up on the floor and get yelled at by your wife or something.
Or they leave you on the floor, like me.
Yeah, it left you on the floor.
Sweet.
But it makes for an excellent way to pass time, and as long as you have a real strong social aspect, I'm sure this game will stick around long after it's essentially ran its course.
I agree. All right, well, that wraps up tonight's episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. We can't wait to see you on the next one. In the meantime, just so you stay up to date with what we're doing, make sure you follow us on Twitter with the handle Nudawn Linkshell. Make sure you follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Nudawn Linkshell to make sure you can listen in on every live recording. And then make sure you visit us at www.nudawnls.com for an invitation to our Discord to make sure that you can stay up to date on what we're doing, and we want your feedback. But until next time, enjoy your time in Vanadil.